Okay. Hello, people in TV land. I am in a Zoom room with maybe one more person, maybe more. Maybe there's like an infinite number of beings with us that we just can't see. Oh, here, Susan's just arriving. So today I'm going to do this session with the 3 diaphragms. There's more than 3 diaphragms in our body, depending on how we're looking at it, but I'm just using 3 because it very much aligns with our mind, our hearts, and our guts. So, or our reproductive organs, right? So one will be the tentorium cerebelli, which is like this fascia, kind of like a tent, like it's called tentorium because it's kind of like that in our brain that's separating and supporting those upper 2 big quadrants. So that if we even pull on our ears, we're going to pull that little tent down and out. So yeah, just try giving your little ears a pull and see if kind of relax into it, slow down into it. It's worth looking it up just to get the image in your head. So that's one diaphragm in our head. The next one will be our diaphragm here in our above, under our lungs, separating the sort of upper and lower. And the third one will be the pelvic floor. So we're using these 3 diaphragms as the head, as the mind, here as the heart and the breath, and then here as the reproductive organs and the guts. So when we go down into the pelvic floor, the sort of sacral chakra, root chakra, all of the stuff that's supporting us from underneath, just thinking of those things. And these diaphragms as being these sort of slippery sliding surfaces that are helping hold the form of our body. In the case of this diaphragm, it's really moving in our pelvic floor, also moving a lot, not so much movement up here, but there is some. So just thinking of these 3 areas, part of the reason I'm thinking about that is because I was talking actually to a friend who's a physical therapist yesterday, Laura Loftus, and we were talking about finding the movement in the sort of side, front, back, like the transverse plane, if we were like sliced through our body. Beautiful thinking here. But if we were, sliced through our body, what would be happening like that? Is that the coronal plane? I'm not even sure. I always think of it as the horizontal plane in the Laban work. So like we've kind of got the horizontal plane, although there's an inclination into it. It's inclining upward. And then in here, and this one's kind of like more on this kind of a relationship and going up and down, doming in there. And then our pelvic floor, this holding all of our organs and our guts down here in the bottom, right? So we have that, and that's kind of like capable of doing this. So let's tune into that. Maybe let's start with rubbing our hands together, just coming in for a landing, lots of ideas in there. And just offering this moment to take this experience out of the thinking about it place and more into the feeling into it place. So let's actually start with our hands on our head. And you can do this laying down or standing up or seated, however it feels good to you. Actually, let's hum into that. So let's just add a as if you're humming into that tentorium cerebelli, which is that diaphragm that's coming around here. You can also, as you're humming, kind of let your tongue, like you're moving your tongue around in your mouth, which will change the sound. So hands can be there for as long as you want. If you're tired of holding them up, just drop them. But let's hum with that for a few minutes or a few breaths. We're not trying to make this exhale last forever. We're just coming in. We could also think of listening into the sound in our own head, like really deeply listen, feeling into it. So it's this big somatic experience. Mm. When I move my tongue around in my mouth with that, it changes the hear, feel sense of what's happening in there for me, where it's happening, sort of the location, the density of vibration. And it also adds, when I'm using the tongue, this really fluid sense. So, in a sense, like what the offering is today is to come into that sort of these different horizontal fields in our body and offer them more fluidity, right? Offer them more vitality, more interrelationship, so that most of the not most of, a lot of the fluid that moves through our body is either nourishing or taking away waste or bringing oxygen to our body. So letting that hydration move through there to really nourish ourselves in in those areas of our body. So a couple more breaths there. Mm. If we talk about that horizontal plane, we don't just have the side, we have the front back, but we can think of it as this table plane. And as we're in this exploration, I'm just going to invite you to imagine that table of the diaphragm of the tentorium cerebelli is actually like not like a diaphragm, not like a table, but more like maybe a jellyfish in the water with that free capacity for movement and hydration, like just responding to the movement of the water. And of course, we can lay down, be seated, any way to explore this, but we're inviting in micro movement. It might be happening just on a level of the fluids or on a level of the breath, or it might be quite macro. So whatever feels right to you in that exploration, go for it, however it feels interesting. I'm going to stay with the sound a little bit more and just kind of let my head, this upper diaphragm and the sort of horizontal plane, I'm just going to let that whole thing sort of float around, right, with that sort of jellyfish idea. Mm. I'm going to also let my tongue move in my mouth, having this rippling and waving, feeling into that. Right, for our primitive brain on this deep level, if we just turn our head from side to side and we notice that we're safe, then we're giving our body this deep level information that it's okay. We can start to downregulate, we can let go. So inviting in, the vagus nerve to come online with the information going up and down between your brain, your heart, and your guts. But especially this sort of primitive brain, basic way of knowing I'm safe. And if you need to ever open your eyes and look around and just feel yourself in your space, like as I move my eyes, as I turn my head and I look around in this horizontal plane, and if I'm laying down, we could just translate that to being laying down and looking around. But as I do that, like there's all of this capacity for movement and hydration in my head, in my neck, in my spine, right? So I'm inviting that sort of recapitulation, biomorphic aliveness, vitality to just come online in this exploration. So I'm still in my awareness in this space of my head and the space around me. And I'm going to start to let it move down into my diaphragm, breathing muscle and organ massager. So I'm just going to take my hands on around the back and around the front to feel into it. I'm going to play with some sounds here too. So in the Britannia fork, we would say that the ah vibrates up here in your heart and the ooh down lower. So I'm going to play between the ah and the ooh just to come into that area. Of course, this is just a concept about what's going on. Maybe it works that way for you, maybe it doesn't. So all of these ideas that I'm offering are just in some systems, we can look at it this way. If it doesn't work for you, let it go. But playing with the ooh, ah, with the diaphragm. So in order to be able to really let out an ooh, ah, I've got to take in a big breath. Ooh, ah, ah, ah. Inviting the play in a very like spirally, three-dimensional, watery way in this area of your body so that we can think about creating more freedom above it and more freedom below it, working in a very integrated, coherent manner so that our systems are organizing in harmony, engendering health. Ooh. So one thing that I'm noticing that is desiring to come in is this sort of undulation pattern through my head tail connection through my spine. So we're not trying to cut any of that out. We're working with these diaphragms, but everything else is welcome to the party. So if anything comes in that feels good, that's interesting for you, feel free to play with that. Ooh, ah. Hands-on often gives you a lot of information, but sometimes you want to let go of that. So feel free to let this move into the bigger horizontal field or add up, down, add anything that feels good in your body. So just letting yourself bring in anything that's arising. So I think a lot of this somatic work is really not about forcing your body to do something that you don't want to do. It's really about allowing your body to express in this very different way, where we're simply letting movement bubble up, letting the systems come online for more vitality and more life. So what I also notice is that under my diaphragm, my belly and my guts really want to be able to stick out and move around. So there's this freedom. Again, that jellyfish idea, like jellyfish isn't grabbing onto anything. Jellyfish is just there in the water. They're not going, oh my God. They're going, oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm reading the jellyfish's imaginary mind. So in my imagination, that's how that goes. But letting yourself find that freedom and fluidity. And the freedom of the jellyfish is because the water is moving it, right? It's not because the jellyfish is doing things. It's allowing the movement of the water. So we could think about that. That's one thing I feel like in this horizontal plane, it's often like if we look at water, it's going to rest into the horizontal plane, right? It understands the horizontal plane. Maybe there's ripples and waves, but ultimately it understands, that horizon line because of gravity, right? It's the work of gravity on water that makes it go, oh, I'm just going to flatten out here. Maybe there are internal forces, tides, things like that that are affecting it also. So letting yourself tune to that intelligence level of the water in your body. I'm going to just play with the breath sound without the vocal cords, with the ooh and the ah. And the invitation is really to participate in your own way. Could be so different than what I'm doing. That's totally fine. permission granted to do whatever you need to do with this, whatever is arising. Inviting in the internal wisdom, the internal intelligence of your dynamic living body, the living tissue, the living fluid in your body. So we're going to take it down to the pelvic floor. If you're still in a nice exploration there and you want to stay where you are, that's fine. Thinking of the basin, all of these words are really weird for the pelvic floor. It's not a floor, it's a live living tissue. So the pelvic, like inverted jellyfish, whatever you want to think of it as, but living live tissue down in there supporting us, right? It's holding us, supporting our bodies, letting us like go to the bathroom, all that kind of stuff. So we're even have sex. So inviting in the reproductive organs, the gut body, all the things into our relationship with the pelvic floor. So I'm on this ball, which is great because I can really mobilize and move around. And I'm going to go back to the ooh sound, the O, but I'm really going to let the O drop down into my pelvis. I am not cutting off the rest of my body. I'm just deepening the relationship down there. This is a great place to start to find some arching and curling with your spine, letting your tail reach out and back, right? These are primal movements that we do, that arching and curling, right? Like arching in surprise or shock or ecstasy, curling in to either wrap ourselves around a person or even just wrapping ourselves around ourselves. So inviting in this idea of having the capacity to come up and in and the capacity to go down and out, so that our pelvic floor isn't just a one, well, everything can go in both directions, like our diaphragm. We're not preferring one direction to the other. We're not giving the pull up more than we give the push down. Equanimity for the up and the down in our pelvic floor. Right? There are a lot of cultural and political reasons that we may not feel very comfortable with our pelvic floor, or trauma things that have happened to us. So for this moment, maybe letting go of the stories and just be in sensation. And if something feels too uncomfortable, just sit up, look around, stop moving. That's always an option. Go get a drink of water. But if it feels okay, inviting yourself to root down into that pelvic floor, right? We are born on this planet. It is our birthright to be here. We can connect down into the roots through our pelvic floor, down through our legs. But any expression that comes up, right, that is what's happening. That's what's happening. So just having some equanimity for that. As long as we're not hurting someone else, it's all allowed, right? Letting ourselves have that depth of connection down through our guts into our pelvis, to the lowest parts of our pelvis, that diaphragm, that living structure supporting us, right? How can we avoid having, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer? Maybe by giving some life to this part of our body, right? There's our creative life force that comes through this area. Let's just allow some of that to express in whatever way feels good. So we're not locking it up. We're not shutting it down. We're allowing it. Even like the O-ring muscles of your lips, letting that kind of movement with the ooh, that idea in the tissue soften down into the tissue in your lower body. Ooh. Clearing away the cobwebs or whatever else is going on down there. And giving ourselves some like right to self-love, right to referential love. I don't know what I'm saying, but right, we have the right to feel good about ourselves. We have the right to feel good within our bodies. That is our birthright, being born on this planet. There are other birthrights too, but to be able to feel good in yourself, clear out the holding patterns of judgment, of comparison that have lodged in our bodies, where we go, shake it off, let it go. Yeah, coming back to the nature of being bodies of water, air, fire, earth, right? The density of our bones, the air in our lungs, the fluids moving through our body, the fire of our spirit. So I'm just using those 4 elements because they're the ones I'm most familiar with in the systems that I work with. But feeling how that, allowing yourselves freedom of movement with that. So I'm going to invite us to just have a little bit of more exploration with some music. I did get the Jeff Gersh, a couple more things from Jeff Gersh, because I promised it if I made a certain amount of money on my buy me a coffee, and I did. So we're going to use this, which is Olaf's Fjordur. I'm probably butchering that, but it's Jeff Gersh, Ambient Fields. So the invitation now is to really let the relationship between the 3 areas dance in any way that feels good. Fully landing in your squishy body of water, letting it express without making plans, without judging, just allowing movement to bubble up. Or it might be tiny little micro movement, maybe small, teeny tiny adjustments, or big stuff, whatever feels good to you. But just thinking more about these diaphragms and these parts of our body, these diaphragms are made out of soft tissue, right? There's no bones, there's no hardness in them. They're very strong, but they're also soft, right? So it's possible to be soft and strong at the same time. Letting yourself lean into your softness, especially for yourself. Kindness for your tissues, kindness for your relationship with your body, which is an ever changing thing. It's not set, it's a living event, the relationship we have with our bodies. And our body is aware of everything that goes on, right? It's all happening here, it's not happening somewhere else. Can we be kinder and gentler with our tissues? Can we really include these parts of our bodies in a loving way? All parts of our bodies. Letting yourself have a little like wash down with kindness. All connected, one whole body. It's not separate. It's not separate from our mind. They are not two different things. It's all one. Our perceptions are all happening in here. Can we tune to them more skillfully and more kindly with more equanimity? If you feel like you're a very sort of dense person, maybe you can find some lightness in your breath. And I mean like dense, not in your thinking, but in your body, like kind of dense and grounded. Maybe find some lightness in your breath or some fire, some passion. And if you feel like you're a really airy person, all over the place, maybe you can find some density in your bones. Just bringing in these ideas as we've been moving these three areas, just broadening the scope. If you're a very fiery person, very passionate, maybe you can find some fluidity in the water in your body, some relationship through that, right? How do we sense gravity? How do we sense the gravitational pull of the earth? A lot through the water in our body, right? We sense that relationship. Turn off the sound. Let's have a couple of minutes to process. So if you do this work and you spend some time with it, it's really nice to let your body process in either really small movement or stillness, just giving yourself a chance to allow all that came up to integrate. Yeah, and in these last final moments, maybe taking another thought feel into each of these areas, into the tentorium, cerebelli in here in our head, into our diaphragm, and into our pelvic floor, just feeling those three places again. So I'm going to stop the live stream. People out there in TV land, I am reachable, and I also, you can work privately with me. I am taking clients. So if you want to reach out to me, I will put a link to my website in the comments.